just a private enterprise operation.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another of my classic Clint Eastwood film reviews. Today I'm taking a look at the 1970 World War II comedy adventure film Kelly's Heroes. The film is directed by Brian G. Hutton and it stars Clint Eastwood, of course, Telly Savalas, Don Rickles, Donald Sutherland, Carol O'Connor, Gavin MacLeod and Hal Buckley. Right, okay, this tells the story of Clint Eastwood's character Kelly, who, while interrogating a high-ranking German officer, discovers that there is a town 30 miles behind enemy lines with a bank in it that has 16,000 gold bars. He then decides to put together a team to head out there behind enemy lines without their superiors knowing in order to rob this bank of all its gold. As they set off to do this, as you can imagine, things don't necessarily go according to plan. Right, what are my thoughts on Kelly's Heroes? Well, this has always been one of my favourite Clint Eastwood films, one of my favourite war films, one of my favourite films from my childhood. I just think this is an absolutely fabulous film. Some time ago on the channel, probably a couple of years ago now, I reviewed The Dirty Dozen on this channel. Now, I explained in that review that The Dirty Dozen was one of my first experiences of, like, watching movies on a VHS player back in the early 80s. And that was because my dad had purchased, like, a double box set of The Dirty Dozen and Kelly's Heroes. So I spent all my summer holidays falling in love with this VHS machine, watching The Dirty Dozen and Kelly's Heroes more times than I care to admit. I loved it, and I fell in love with both films. This one, probably a little bit more, because this is a bit lighter. This is a lighter approach to telling a war story. It's a heist movie, but it's set in World War II, this. But it's got some very, very fun moments in it in regards to the lightness and the comedy. It's not a parody, it's not slapstick or anything like that, and for those of you who've seen that, you will know that. I mean, they've got geniuses like Don Rickles in here, who... You know, he comes out with some absolutely belters in this film. You've got Donald Sutherland playing Oddball, who was at the very start of his career, really, when he did this. And he's just like this hippie that, you know, is in charge of 3 tanks. But he's a bit loopy, hence the name Oddball. And he's just hilarious. You know, he keeps telling off his men for giving him negative waves when they're in dangerous situations, and it just makes you giggle. There's so many memorable scenes here in this film, where before Clint Eastwood's Kelly convinces Telly Savalas' platoon of men to come with him and help, they are all basically given 3 days off by their superior to kind of rest and recuperate. And there's nothing to do in the place they've been given to rest and recuperate. So Telly Savalas says, right, we're going to get some booze. And then he looks at one of his men and he's going, and one of his men looks at him and says, we ain't got no booze. And I remember very distinctly as a child, as a youngster, rewinding that over and over again because it just made me like fall over with laughter the way that line was delivered. And there's countless lines like that in the film, the way they're delivered. They just make you smile, make you giggle. But it's also, at the very core of this, an action adventure film and a war film. And there are some very impressive action sequences here. Lots of explosions, all this kind of stuff. Firefights where, you know, characters that you actually have started becoming fond of get taken out here and there. It's not one of those where they really give you any shocks or anything, any of the main cast. But there are people that lose their lives here in this, so it is fundamentally a war film. It's not all fun and games. And I've always absolutely loved the climax of this film, where they get to this town and they're like facing tiger tanks, I think the tigers, and the tanks that Donald Sutherland's brought, and he's only got one left by this point, is no match for these tanks. So they've got to kind of really strategize in regards to what they're going to do. There's homages here to his spaghetti western trilogy, Clint Eastwood. Right at the end, they do like a little walk down the street, and it's clearly an homage to Good, Bad and the Ugly. There is some incredibly memorable characters here. As I've said, Kelly. I mean, Kelly's really, obviously no disrespect to Clint Eastwood because I love him to bits, is probably the least interesting character. I mean, he has his moments, of course he does, but this is very much a ensemble piece. And, you know, Clint Eastwood is very, very happy to share the limelight with everybody. And Telly Savalas as Big Joe is absolutely brilliant as well. I've always enjoyed Telly Savalas's performances. I think he's a very good actor. But again, his line delivery here is just absolutely on point. He's really, really good. As I've said, Don Rickles is fantastic, very, very funny. But probably the one that steals this film is Donald Sutherland as Oddball. He is just outstanding, hilarious, funny, so memorable. And the film has no fear, really, in blending its genres and doing it so effortlessly. Films today really struggle to balance tonally all the things that this film is trying to do. It's trying to do action, it's trying to do adventure, it's trying to do a war film, it's trying to do comedy, you know, it's trying to do all these different things and blend them into a really fun and entertaining movie. And he absolutely does it effortlessly. Now, apparently, and I didn't know this, Don Siegel was set to direct this. Obviously, he is, you know, a good friend of Clint Eastwood by this point. Now, you know, they made 5-6 movies together, something like, which is essentially the reason Clint Eastwood signed on to do the film. But then Don Siegel had to pull out due to, I think, some issues they were having on Two Mules for Sister Sarah, getting that edited down and stuff. But by that point, Clint Eastwood had signed a contract and he couldn't get out of the film, which I'm pleased about because I actually think this is a really, really good Clint Eastwood film to have on his filmography. And also, as well, something else I didn't realise, Donald Sutherland apparently became deathly ill on the set. Very, very ill, to the point where when they rang his wife, they basically said, you better come out, but you better prepare yourself, and may be dead when you get here. Don't know if that was a bit too extreme, if you know, and I don't know if that's exaggerated, but that's what I've read anyway in regards to what was reported. But yeah, it's just, for me, a classic 70s movie that has aged like a fine wine. It's still incredibly watchable, and that's the great thing about period pieces, really. If they're done well, they don't age, and this is just one of those films that just hasn't aged in my mind. It just feels just as watchable and fun today. As I've said, it's got some really memorable moments in it, the film. It's a real standout war film, and I have to tell you guys, I'm not the biggest fan of war movies. It has to kind of do something a little bit different, you know. And it says something that, you know, my favourite war films are like things like The Dirty Dozen and Kelly's Heroes. Mainly for a lot of the nostalgia is there for me, obviously, because I've explained how I kind of watched them for the first time. But, you know, I'm not a big war movie fan or anything like that. Generally speaking, I don't get excited at the thought of watching, you know, a war film or anything like that. But even though I do watch some and I enjoy them a great deal. So I think this is an absolute 70s classic, a brilliant, brilliant, fun film. If you've never seen Kelly's Heroes, you must seek it out to watch it. If you haven't seen it for a while, again, give it another watch, and I will see you back on the channel with plenty more reviews and content very, very soon.